Welcome to Messages from the Universe with Lori Wondra. Lori is an internationally renowned psychic medium, author, and shamanic practitioner, sharing insights from angels, guides, wisdom keepers, and teachers of the universe that help you navigate life's mysteries and transformations.
Hello, I am Lori Wondra, and thank you for listening. Boy, has it been a crazy start of the year. The last month, especially the last few weeks, have felt that the universe has taken us on this crazy journey. It has been this tornado of energy. I also call it the earthquake of our soul. We've experienced the eclipse energies of March, the spring equinox that opened up the door for new beginnings and seeding our desires, our wishes, our dreams. The Neptune moving out of Pisces and moving into Aries has removed the watery layer of things. Things that have been lurking in the shadow have been coming to the surface for us to deal about. It's a pressure cooker of energy. And maybe we've healed enough layers that now we can finally see what is beneath. Maybe now is where we are absolutely ready to see what has always been there, or to remove any beliefs that we were defenseless or we couldn't do anything about a situation. Sometimes it's easier to look back on planetary impacts and understand what is behind them. We can look back in Neptune being in Pisces for 14 years, and that gave us this watery place to swim around and maybe being suspect to seeing things, but not quite wanting or being ready to see them, not ready to admit to the things that needed to be changed. Looking at something without really jumping in. We kind of just dipped our toes into the surface and seeing if it was a version of what we might be or something that we might want to be. But the energy that we're in now through the spring equinox, the eclipses, Neptune now in Aries, and Saturn is about to also move into Aries. We cannot not see what's happening. And once we see what's happening, or once we acknowledge what's happening, we can't unsee it. And maybe this is because we've done so much healing, that we've peeled back the layers and we're ready. And I do believe that's a huge part of it, is that we are seeing the collectives in so many areas come to the surface, and we're saying, not again. We're seeing our shadow, the pieces and the depths of ourselves, those pieces that we haven't wanted to see in the past, or those things about our communities or our leaders or those in our families or our jobs. We're seeing those things that we haven't wanted to admit. We're seeing our history, the errors of the past, the pain of the past, the places, the things, the people that have held us back, those things that have hurt us or stunted our progress. And we're frustrated. And we ask, how did we get here? More importantly, we're asking, how do we stop it, or how do we get out of it? And that's the difference. In past lifetimes, we didn't have the power or the knowledge or the energy to navigate out of something. And this lifetime, many of us are being called to change the progression or change the trajectory of where we're going. And if we can't see it, then we can't fix it or we can't change it. So of course, we have to see it in order to change it. Now, Saturn's is a planet of responsibility, and it enters Aries, which is the sign of youth and new beginnings and power and self. As the archetype of Aries is I am. Saturn starts a 2.5-year long event. More importantly, it is part of this brand new 29-year long cycle. And we step into that. We start to feel the energy of that in May. I honestly believe we're feeling it now on the outskirts. But Saturn stays in Aries until April 13th of 2028. And normally, I would wait until we're a little bit closer to that transition date to talk about the energy impacts, but this is really impacting us now. And we are empowered. When we have information and knowledge, we can bring reason to what is happening rather than stuffing it away and waiting for somebody else to resolve it or something else to happen to resolve it. We're part of the resolution. We're part of the solution. We cannot look away from it right now. Now, Saturn transits are beyond a shadow of a doubt some of the most powerful astrological influences in our personal lives. We talk about our Saturn returns that we hit when we're 29, then when we're 58 and a half, and then when we're in our 80s. But this transit into Aries is also powerful because of the other planets that are in influence right now. Pluto is the most transformative. That one goes the deepest because it's death and rebirth. I mentioned Neptune also being in Aries. Uranus transits can absolutely put our lives upside down in their own way. But because of the length, Uranus and Taurus, Gemini, is 8 years each. Neptune in Aries is 14 years. Pluto in Aquarius is 20 years. All their influences spread out and sometimes quite diffused. It's a long time. So for example, Neptune in Aries over 14 years, it's going to take time for us to feel that impact. But Saturn is faster. It's 2.5 years. And that sign's journey will have a much more concentrated energy that grounds the other slowing planets' energy. The transformative energy of those other planets is going to hit a little bit harder. We won't be able to miss or avoid. Even if you have no clue about astrology, you are going to feel this energy because it's shifting us into change. Also, Saturn is famously the keeper of time. This means that each astrological Saturn event unfolds in a concentrated 2.5 years, but in a less concentrated way over the next 29 to 30 years. So what we'll meet now is something that we'll keep encountering that will shape our futures collectively and, more importantly, personally for the next 29 years. I'm watching what's happening right now. And if you're not liking what is happening right now, we have an opportunity to change it so we don't experience that same or similar episodes over this longer period of time. Now, Saturn in Aries gives us the exact consequences of the seeds that we've sowed, the outcomes of our past actions. This can be wonderful, as Saturn also rewards things like mastery, hard work, integrity, sustainability, those things that we call success and bring successful results. And those can last a lifetime. But Saturn also gives us the reality for where we screwed up, individually or as a society. It's fire, and there might be consequences or outcomes that we didn't see coming or we didn't believe would ever happen. And we're seeing this in our political arena. We're seeing this in our weather patterns. We're seeing this around the globe. And if you still don't believe what is happening or that we can change it, I just ask you to wake up, to pause, to dig in, to study and be aware of what's happening because we do have an opportunity to change it. Saturn shows us what we've been avoiding. We are in unavoidable real life experiences. It forces us to see what we've not wanted to see or didn't believe as truth. It's also put us in a position of having to have responsibility for the outcomes of actions of all. Saturn gives great rewards. We have to remember that it's not all dark. It's not all bad. There are good parts of Saturn also. I will go into the impacts of Saturn in Aries for all the signs a little bit later, but right now I want to talk about just in generalities the impact of Saturn in Aries because it signifies the start of a timeline that we'll directly encounter through the next 2.5 years, and we'll keep encountering it for those next 29, 30 years and longer. We're focused on a theme, let's say, around children. Whether they're your own personal children or children born into our communities, countries, or the world at large. This energy impacts children, but then it also means the coming generations, and we need to be aware of that. The next decade will see a massive transformation on the way we treat children, how we see child rearing practices, how we prioritize future generations. We have to think about the future instead of just thinking about ourselves right now. And this starts with Saturn in Aries, and it continues. It starts with us as societies getting the bill for the ways we did or didn't show up for our children in our lives, specifically where political and economic decisions maybe deprioritize children for one reason or another. We'll see and feel the consequences for this in an effort for the adjustment to be made now. This is the age of Aquarius. I can think of how we view technology and social media, and I wonder, how will that shift? I can see in my own children from the time that they were little to now as adults, how has technology and social media impacted them? And I can apply those principles to small children where they might be exposed to social media and technology at even a younger age. How will it impact them? How will it impact them for socialization and harmonization? We don't want to harm those that we know, but if we're wrapped into technology or social media without knowing our fellow humans, we disassociate, and so it becomes easier to harm those we don't know. Saturn in Aries demands responsibility from everyone on an individual level, not just one group in society, but on a person-by-person basis. We'll see people, we need to see people, regardless of gender, make decisions that solve their children's problems and prioritize their needs, even if this requires some personal sacrifice. I just feel like this is going to be a focus for us as we understand the future of us is the up-and-coming generations. This is part of the Aries energy that is Saturn in Aries, as well as Neptune in Aries, where we'll see more of the unfolding of gender roles and gender differences and more focus on what does that mean or what do we want it to mean? Does it have to mean something? And the big question, why can't we all just get along? Why can't we just be who we want to be? Now, Saturn in Aries also speaks to the necessity and the difficulties of taking charge of ourselves and our own lives. The universe asks us, what are you responsible for? Yes, politics, major corporations, the people in our lives all have an impact on how we live, but none of this absolves us of our own responsibility or our power in creating our daily experience. Our need to interact and speak up to create change will continue to be expected. For example, if you're noticing that social media negatively impacts your mental health, you have the choice to shut it off. It's that realization you let it into your life in the first place. You also have a choice to shut it off. If you don't like how you feel because you're eating something or you're not moving, then you have the choice to make those changes. And if you don't like something, you will become more aware of what you don't like in order to make the changes. Leaving this year and entering a new start year is going to be vital. It's going to be important. And having choice is vitally important, because if we feel our freedoms or our choices or those obstructions or those restrictions hold us back from making the changes or being who we want to be, well, it will be time for us to speak up. Saturn in Aries is also a time to say no. It's a time to hold boundaries and defend them against any outside forces, including people, places, or things that might want to take over control. Now, eclipse season brought the collapse of so many boundaries and a different level of challenges. But part of that is the universe encouraging us to reestablish the boundaries or to find the boundaries because maybe they weren't there in the first place. We also know we don't always get what we want, and Saturn shows us that. We don't always get to exercise our own will, and sometimes not even our own rights, but we will have opportunity to say no, and we will have opportunity to change that where we feel there's a wrong made against us. There's a major theme of Saturn in Aries. It's being confronted with situations where life just says no to something we desire. something that is temporary or forever. This is something that we will have to deal with, but also understanding that we have a choice and we have a voice and we have the opportunity to change those things. It can also be an energy of things or a person who's stripping us of what we need. Saturn in Aries can speak to an outside force, such as a person, stripping us of our choices and restricting our personal freedoms. That is exactly what we're seeing now. We're feeling threatened. This is not something to quietly accept and sit by idle or defend something. But under Saturn in Aries, we will see those restrictions individually and socially. And if we fight, we even have the ability to win, even if it doesn't look like it is. And I'm not talking about brutal war fight. I'm talking about peaceful, using your voice, standing up for your rights, making changes. Saturn in Aries teaches us to tune into this human emotion that's necessary for our health and our survival, and it's necessary for our future. If you choose the responsible, mature way of expressing your anger, you'll have success at this time. But if we act upon it through war and fight and turmoil, then we'll have less. It's always being in the flow or the gentleness of it. Saturn asks us to handle everything that we have responsibility for, anything that's sustainable and economical. Now in Aries, the most energetic sign of the zodiac signs, this includes the sustainability of energy, the consequences of uneconomic energy, use of how we prioritize our energy, meaning don't waste your energy. If you're worrying about something that you have no control over, stop the worry and take action. The Saturn in Aries journey is massively impacted by two other highly important astrological events. And I mentioned Pluto and Aquarius, that 20-year-long cycle that pits us against group pressure, asks us to be an individual, and shows us how to be transformative, how technology and how the power of the people, even if that power may be at times suppressed, can be very powerful. The second is Neptune in Aries, and that's that 14-year-long event that I mentioned earlier. It starts at this time. Saturn is in Aries, Neptune is in Aries, and Pluto is in Aquarius. Now, right now, Saturn grounds those long-term themes into our individual experiences and provides the starting line for some major society-wide and individual growth processes. These are really interesting times. I might call it different than interesting. It feels chaotic, it feels challenging, it feels frustrating, but it is an opportunity for us now to make changes. Let's look at how Saturn in Aries is going to impact each sign. For the best outcome, you might want to listen to your sun sign as well as your rising sign. Let's start with Aries. So Aries, the keywords are self, identity, your body, new beginnings, and your life path. Saturn is moving through your first house of new beginnings. The self, your body, your life path. Essentially, this is a time where you are aligning your life with the visions that you hold and where you're making the physical changes necessary to see things coming into alignment. You've just completed a 2.5-year period of seeing your foundations crumble as everything that wasn't meant to stay got flushed out of your life. Now it's time to rebuild for a more solid self and your life path. This is also a time when the universe is asking you to stay accountable to yourself, to be in integrity with your highest values, and to figure out who you've become. Usually an event like this brings heightened wisdom, leaps in maturity, and a more solid sense of self that's not as easily affected by other people's opinions or social pressure. Word of caution, though, being too hard on yourself and giving up on your goals because they feel too hard. This is a time for you to be absolute, to look at the things that you have achieved and the things that you are achieving, even if it's celebrating the little wins. Don't get too serious. certainly don't beat yourself up. This is a time to not be afraid of laughter. I think sometimes Saturn is a planet of humor. This is a time to take your alignment serious. Trust the process, become yourself, but also don't be afraid to laugh at those missteps that might happen along the way. And Taurus, well, your keywords are rest, release, necessary endings, karmic ripening, spirituality, and sometimes a little bit of loneliness. Saturn is starting a process of showing you exactly what in your life outlived its usefulness, what has created some ill effects on you, maybe some things that have kept you stuck, or some things that harm you or others. This is a time of clearing what isn't meant to stay. It's a time of productivity and necessary endings. This isn't bad. It might feel a little off at first glance, and whenever we feel stuck or bogged down, which Saturn usually illuminates, this event helps us take the action necessary to clean it up, to release it, to move on. Anything that also might bring up past pain or false beliefs or habits, those get released so that you can move forward to a better future. And though this process can be painful, it can be frustrating, it does allow you to lead a much better life. This is also a time where we're more drawn or end up in situations where we find we're in service to others, and we might find that we're dealing with topics that we'd like to forget or we'd like to ignore. But the world at large doesn't allow us that. We might find ourselves as a necessity to be right in the middle of that situation in order to help others or even help yourself. There's an ignition that's happening within you, a passion that you might feel that is giving you additional skills, things that you need to make a true difference for yourself as well as for others. Saturn here also illuminates where you need to trust yourself and trust in a higher power. Faith and trust can carry you a long way at this time. And at this time, starting something new might feel difficult as the focus is more on releasing what was and leaning or learning from the past and leaning into the future. However, you can use your gifts of heightened intuition to figure out where you need to go next as you have a unique view of what is and what isn't working. Be careful of defeatism, getting into situations that you can leave, sacrificing yourself in situations that don't warrant sacrifice. Don't be afraid to say no. On the physical level, don't be hesitant to declutter your physical space. Do what you've been avoiding and say goodbye when you need to. Choose trust and faith. Listen to your dreams and your intuition and learn about positive psychology and good mental health practices. And Gemini, your keywords are community, friends, groups, strategizing for the future, hopes and dreams, and maybe a little bit of fame in there. This event is going to help you practically, sustainably, and solidly build the life that you wish to lead for the rest of your life, as it affects your plans, your goals, and certainly your long-term future. Whatever foundations are needed to truly support your future life, this event will prepare you for them. Sometimes it means tearing down what was in the way. Trust that what falls away wasn't meant for you, and what you build is what you do need to see. Seriously, take the practical steps as you're astrologically supported. If you feel stuck, focus on the short term right now. Trust the universe has you. This transit also deals with your reputation. Essentially, Saturn gives you the consequences for the way you've lived or stayed in and out of alignment with yourself through how people treat you. Don't worry, not everything that someone else does is your fault, nor is it your responsibility. This astrological event affects those areas, but your reputation will get a more thorough update based on the way you've been living and treating others. Lastly, Saturn gets to work on your community, strengthening and solidifying bonds with those meant to stay in your life and showing you who isn't for your highest good. In friendships, Saturn shows you how to weed out maybe the low vibration, those relationships that just don't fit. And it also shows you where and how to invest your time and energy in the good vibrations. Those are the things that you deserve. Your friends may also need you more than usual at this time, so this is a time for you also to realize this is the case and for you to be there for them. Be careful of living life based on other people's opinion. That would be peer pressure. Building a life you think you should have rather than what you truly desire. And just be aware of social media impacts. Prioritize friendships. Pour into a healthy community. Make plans for the future and take actions and steps towards those plans. And also you might go through a time of needing to learn just to be alone, just to be comfortable in your own presence. And Cancer, well, your keywords are career, public life, mission, authority figures, legacy, reputation, and some things around the father energy. Saturn is leading you through a time of change in your career, maybe your role in your community, your mission, your public life, and certainly your legacy. That's a lot of topics and might play out in some very interesting ways. Firstly, you might experience both stepping stones and obstacles in your actual job or your career at this time. They're both a direct reflection of your past actions. If you have the ability to reflect on what's happening today and why it might be happening based on your past actions, you can adjust. This is a time that you step into your higher power of wisdom. This will steer you towards what's best for you. So if you've been working your butt off in the wrong job, you might not be seeing progress because, well, it's the wrong job. This is also a time where you might be tempted to take a role of higher responsibility and live out the responsibility in a different way, maybe by prioritizing your actions, your steps, maybe concentrating your energies on what really matters. This might even lead someone to change their entire life so that they can do justice to what they truly care about. For instance, changing their job to something less time consuming so they can spend more time with their children. This also affects people's missions outside of their careers, as some of us don't get to live our soul's purpose on the job. This might be a time to commit fully to that larger mission and put your money and your time with that vision of your purpose. As Saturn here has an added emphasis on parenting themes, and I spoke earlier about children and the future generations. Cancer, you will feel this in the area of home life, children, even education of children. Be cautious of working yourself too hard, too long, staying in the wrong job or the wrong place for too long, becoming over responsible in areas that you really don't need to take responsibility for. Be cautious of dominating authority, choosing work over what really matters in your life. Do prioritize what matters to you. Do take responsibility. Take on roles of leadership that you can bring an impact to better your life or better others. Own yourself and your activities, your responsibilities, and own your choices. And Leo, keywords for you are belief systems, broadening your horizons, learning, teaching, travel, and luck. For you, Saturn is on a 2.5-year journey of testing and updating all of your beliefs, political, religious, spiritual, psychological, and all other beliefs that you might hold up for a process in which they're being tested on truth. They need to be grounded in reality and truth and practicality, and frankly, where you're tested on whether you actually live accordingly. This is the Band-Aid being pulled off and you being able to see and feel what really matters. Here is where, whether your beliefs are sustainable for the long term, and actually if they're practical, do they serve you? Do they create a good moral compass that you can follow each and every day. And there might be some challenges along the way that challenge you to correct that compass. When it comes to learning, Saturn in Aries asks you to become proactive in trying to understand the world and build the skills you truly need to succeed in life. But your definition of succeeding in life might be changing. Your horizons need to be broadened, while you need to double down on what you know to be true and defend it against anything that's false. You may also be prepared for teaching, whether that's actually a teaching job or just sharing your experiences and your knowledge with others. That might be in a more subtle capacity. Let's say even if you're in a leadership role, you might be asked to speak up or speak about experiences that you might not have in a normal conversation. This is also a time when you need to be more visible in the world, but from a place of making your message visible. Not yourself, but your message. What your message is, of course, depends on you as an individual and your belief systems and those changes or shifts that you're going through. Be cautious of becoming too extreme or too hard on yourself or others, being too judgmental and losing sight of the bigger picture, becoming dogmatic, believing things without proper reflection or proper information. Test your beliefs. As you learn something new and you develop a new belief, the universe will test you, but also the invite to test yourself. Stay in integrity. Learn more about faith, spirituality, even politics, and other things. Learn new things. And Virgo, keywords are the wound and healing and truth and trust, intimacy, inheritance, and shared resources. Saturn is traveling through your house of truth, trust, power, and intimacy. And in doing so is asking you where you give other people power over you, or whether you've done a good job of discerning if this person with that type of power is a good or a healthy mix. It's also asking you to reclaim your power when you realize that no, this isn't good for you, and to renegotiate boundaries and agreements in relationships and around intimacy so that they work better for you. In intimacy, this is often a time when people become more aware of the spiritual and psychological and physical effects of the other person or people around them. And they tend to become more discerning around whom they wish to share their time and their energy with. In committed relationships, this can look like choosing to have tough conversations to improve the overall health of the relationship. Saturn in Aries is also a massive theme around shared resources, which includes but is not limited to the money you share with a spouse, taxes you pay or alimony to or from you, inheritances, trust funds, and other similar types of finances. Energy and other physical resources that you share with someone can also fall under this umbrella. Now, Saturn here asks you to get real with what's going on here, right now, this minute, today, and tells you to take responsibility for your role in where you are this minute, this moment, today. Now, be cautious of taking on more than what is yours. Be cautious about getting into debt. Heal your heart. Do the work. Seek truth. Trust only those who deserve it. Be discerning and work on paying off any debt. And Libra, keywords for you are one-on-one relationships, business partners, love, marriage, and commitment. This astrological event makes you get real with your partnerships, and this includes but isn't limited to business partnerships. It includes marriages, committed romantic relationships, and your best friends. Your relationships at this time will be tested at their foundation, so now it's time to get real on whether the person across from you is reliable, whether they're committed, whether they're on the same page, whether they are a good fit for you and your future. And if they're not, these relationships will likely not survive this transit. If they are the right fit for you, these relationships are going to thrive and can even deepen. For instance, from a romantic partnership to an actual engagement or a marriage. This is also a prime time to meet the kind of people who stay in your life for a lifetime. There's also another potential here that's very potent and beautiful, and that's transforming relationships. Sometimes we're with people or we're in partnerships that have the potential to go all the way, but there's issues. But Saturn in Aries for you will reveal those issues. If you're ready to look at them, this energy will be on your side to transform them, which allows you both to do your parts to fix the relationship or to mature it so that you can build a healthier or a better future relationship. Now, on a more cautious side, this is also a time to make sure you won't let your desire fit in a specific box, or you get boxed into something that doesn't feel good, or something has to be done by a certain age. This is that jumping the gun or leaping without really understanding what you're leaping into. Really, under Saturn in Aries, this leap for you might not go so well. Be cautious of dating the person who looks really good on paper, but doesn't feel good despite checking those boxes. Be cautious about getting married because you hear the clock ticking, or having children because you hear the clock ticking. Don't take on or don't feed into those things that feel too demanding. This is a time for you to really understand yourself and how you are in relationships and how the relationships are for you. Do be discerning of whom you date. Think of the long-term pieces in the partnership. Really look at if this is a good relationship, is it a good long-term partnership, and don't be afraid to end relationships that you know are not working for you. And Scorpio, well, keywords for you are wellness, health, work, daily routines, work chores, being of service, and your pets. Saturn in this house is asking you to take an honest look at your health, your daily work chores, and your habits. Are your routines making you healthier, or are they having a negative impact on your body, your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body, and your spiritual body? Saturn in Aries will reveal this to you. Is the work that you're doing, from work at your job or chores that you do or your spiritual or emotional health, are those efficient? Are they sustainable? And are they economically fulfilling? Do they fill a purpose? If not, Saturn may make you feel stuck and show you the necessity for change. Is your work, in the widest sense, something that you can continue to do for a long term? If not, Saturn may support you to build better, firmer foundations in your life, might encourage you to move on. In matters of health, this is a time to prioritize eating all your veggies and all your supplements and nutrition. Do other common sense things that improve and maintain your mental, physical, and spiritual health. This is a time to take health matters more seriously and to pay attention to your body. Preventative health certainly helps go a long way in helping long-term health and disease and the aging process. But make sure to listen to your body's signs that you're under too much stress, pains, anxiety, tired. Not everybody gets sick at this time. So please don't worry that just because you're a Scorpio, you're headed down that path of health issues. This is the universe telling you to be aware so that you don't run into health issues in the future. And one last topic for Saturn here for Scorpio is that topic of being in service. Saturn here may get you into situations where you have to take care of other people or otherwise serve others, be more helpful. Please make sure not to stretch yourself beyond your own capacity. If you find yourself in a caregiver situation and you're not equipped, please say, I'm not equipped. I don't have the skills, the tools to manage this. Be cautious on taking on more than you can handle. Be cautious of getting swamped with work, committing to others' routines and habits that really don't serve you. Be cautious of any fear-based behavior around health being used by others. Do commit to the work that lights you up, that makes you happy, Eat healthy. Choose good work environments. Choose happiness, joy, or the events and the practices, and certainly the people that put you in that energy. Hug your pets. Take care of yourself. Avoid being overburdened. And Sagittarius, your keywords are children, romance, pleasure, creativity, fertility, and fun. This astrological event highlights your creative life and ability to come up with new ideas and, more importantly, see them through to completion. Saturn brings a concentration of energy, which may mean that someone comes up with fewer ideas than usual, but they're better, or they have a higher quality, or they might be more practical for you, or by their unique nature, they might be easier to follow. Saturn here gives you more grit and more capacity to see things through to the end. However, it also makes you more susceptible to doubting yourself because it's not your normal mojo. You might look at yourself and think that have imposter syndrome, or you might feel defeated, or you might fall into perfectionism, or feeling like things just aren't worth the effort, but they are. Please trust yourself. Navigate through this time. If you have or want to do a creative job, Saturn here is going to bring you the consequences of your past actions, for better or for worse. It also asks you to do whatever you practically need to do to support your art, and then watch it take off, including learning new skills or seeking additional means of financial revenue while your skills are taking off. Now, when it comes to children and fertility, Saturn asks you to get serious and shows you the consequences of your past actions and investments. Your children might need you more than usual, and past parenting decisions might come back to be revisited. When it comes to fertility, Saturn asks us to get responsible, either by prepping for future children or by building long-term doable action plans and relationships to support those that are already here. Now, lastly, Saturn in Aries for you shows you the necessity of keeping fun and joy in your life. In love, this means it's time to look for something serious or to say goodbye to a partner who's just not right for you. In all of life, this means integrating fun and joyful things into your everyday life. Now, be cautious if you're being too serious, if you're skipping on those things that you need to pay attention to, or be cautious if you're giving up on your dreams or your creative aspirations. Do plan and prep for the future. Do address any needs around long-term commitment or relationships. Do invest in joy and happiness and places and things that keep you creative. And Capricorn, well, your keywords are home, foundation, family, priorities, parents, which is your mother energy, and your private life. Saturn in Aries is a time of change in your home, in your family system, and of course, your private life. This is a time to prioritize the life you lead when you're not working, and to pour your energy, your attention, and your resources into your physical home, whether that's the larger area you live in, like your community or your state, or it's your physical living space. The places you spend the most time in may require some attention. You might feel a heightened desire, or you might even have the opportunity to stay home, work from home, remodel your home. Some people under this event may choose to end careers or jobs for the sake of their families or their health, or just to do something different. Now, this leads me to the second theme of this is family. The family you've been born into or the family that you create are parts of this astrological event. Some people may get initiated into parenthood or need to prioritize parenthood and their children more at this time than usual. You might be called to be a parent for those that you're not actually a parent to. If this is so, this is unavoidable. Do right. Do right for the children in our communities. You might feel that you're called to help family members out, including to help your parents. Whether they're biological or not, you might need to spend more time helping children, but also I mentioned the mother energy that might need more of your time at this time also. Lastly, this transit also deals with your private life and history, and the reminder that some things just get to stay private. This event also shows you quite unmistakably where and with whom you belong, where you can plant your roots, where you can trust being for the next 29 years or for the rest of your life. Be cautious of becoming the family's bearer of burdens. Be cautious of large down payments that you might have to stretch. Be cautious of structural damages in your home. Fix them. Take care of them. Don't delay them. Do prioritize yourself. Do prioritize your family and your private time. Take care of your home and the things in your home, and become responsible for your true responsibilities with others. And Aquarius, keywords are communication, perception, local life, siblings, the media, and learning. Now, Saturn in Aries for you affects the way you use your voice and express your ideas. It also involves learning and communication in general, and even the ways you literally perceive the world. Saturn here allows you to see through the nonsense, see behind the veil of illusions that maybe Neptune had for the last 14 years. It allows you to quite practically build skills and learn new things that help you succeed in your future. This is a great time for you to get back to school or otherwise learn something new in your life. Your local life, your siblings, your neighbors, the media, the sales world we're all involved with, because we're all consumers, are also up for this Saturn energy update. This is a time for becoming responsible with which media we consume, where we place our attention, and how we allow marketing to affect or impact us. Again, we can choose to shut it off. This is a time to wake up to where we get lied to. Your local life, your neighbors, your siblings might be needing you more or sparking some changes in your life. So pay attention, and if you can, help them out along the way. Now be cautious of just maybe shooting from the hip if you don't hold all the facts or all the truth. Make sure you dig and you understand. Be cautious of lies. Know your facts. This is also a great time for you to write a book. Be creative. Use your voice. Learn something new. Question reality as it presents itself and trust in your own perception. And Pisces, your keywords are values, self-worth, finances, assets, monetization, and monetizationable skills. This astrological event affects your finances and your relationship with money. This is a time when you'll be getting the consequences for all your past habits. For better or worse, what's built on a firm foundation will thrive. Your products and your skills will shine. Those areas that you've put a lot of work into, those money-bringing endeavors that you've been masterfully working on may generate more money. However, if you're not happy with where you're at, Saturn can also help you slowly change in a sustainable way. This can be a game changer for you. If you have additional self-discipline that allows you to pay off any debt that you might have or to restrict some maybe overspending that you've done in the past, this would be the time the universe gives you an opportunity to correct those relationships that you have with money. Unfortunately, if you have a scarcity mindset around finances, and if you have fears around this subject or issues with generating more income, this also can come up for you strong. This is a time for you to act responsibly. This is a time for you to be aware of what you have and what you don't have and make the adjustments. Another theme that's up at this time is about your values. Saturn cares about our integrity and whether we stay in alignment with what we say matters or whether we waste our time prioritizing other things and beliefs. This is a time to get clear on what you value and to put your money where your mouth is, quite literally as well as figuratively. And lastly, Saturn in Aries can affect your self-worth. This is a time where a self-worth that might be built on lies will crumble. It crumbles when we realize our true qualities, which then it improves our self-worth in the long run and where we get to find peace within ourselves rather than building worth based on ego or a need to get everyone's approval. This is a process though, and there's going to be ups and downs, especially if you have to redefine your worth after opting out of some long-held beliefs about yourself. Pisces, this is a time of self-reflective. This is a time of understanding your self-worth and being real about it. You bring a lot of value up and out into the world, and sometimes you don't acknowledge that for its truth. So this will be the time for you to dive into that. Now, overall, for all astrology signs, this is a reminder that Saturn doesn't fully move into Aries until the end of May, but we are already feeling its influence. Things are ramping up, and I have always found that when we talk about it ahead and when we prepare ourselves, we can better understand the importance of the energy and we can better navigate what's coming ahead for us. Saturn is not a bad thing. Saturn gets a bad rap, sometimes like Mercury being retrograde, but Saturn is our shadow parts, and so it's meaning to bring in the responsibility parts of our sign that maybe we've overlooked or maybe we've continued to avoid. This is the time for us to shine. I'm Lori Wondra of Your Life Core. Be blessed, be happy, and please remember you never walk alone. If you feel challenged or troubled or need insight, please reach out to the angels and guides that are forever around you, the teachers, the healers, the wisdom keepers of the universe, and specifically your guide. They will guide you through life. You never walk alone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Messages from the Universe. For information about Lori Wondra's current events or to schedule a private session, visit her website, yourlifecore.com. You can also subscribe to her monthly newsletter. Lori also shares inspirational and informational messages on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening.